Hello, my name is Latavia Townsend. This is my introductory video for instructor methodology, so allow me to share a little bit about myself. First of all, I would like by saying it's nice to meet you all. I look forward to collaborating with you all in this class, and if we should ever run into each other out in the field, it's nice to meet you. So I'll start off by giving a little bit of my professional background. I think that EMS is unique in the sense that there's a lot of people who aspire to be in EMS, but there's also a number of people who kind of stumble into it, and that's definitely been my experience. I was in undergrad at UNCW. It was my senior year, and my dad had a stipulation for paying my bills while I was in school, and that was that I had to be a full-time student. My second to last semester, I only had to take 2 classes, and my dad was like, "Oh, that's not going to cut it." So I had to find something else educational kind of supplement. So I did my research, and I found that Cape Fear Community Colleges was hosting an EMT class, and I was like, "Well, what about this?" And after speaking to it, he agreed that that was fine. It would work. It would be beneficial in life. It doesn't hurt to know how to help people. So I signed up for the class, and I ended up falling in love. I will say that it was a pretty wild introduction into EMS. Not necessarily the class, but my clinicals while I was in class. My first clinical was with Pender County EMS. My first patient was at a wreck, a really bad wreck in Pender County, and it was a 3-year-old who had been ejected from a car. A pediatric trauma was not how I saw my EMS career starting, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I learned a lot from that call. The patient ended up being okay, but in that moment, in that situation, I was like, oh, this is what this is. Definitely learned a lot from that. And then my second clinical in that class was cardiac arrest with New Hanover County EMS, and we transported the patient to the hospital, and he had rearrested, and my preceptor left me in the ED to do compressions while he went and restocked the truck and finished his chart. And so again, that was definitely a very unique experience. Got to see a lot, learn a lot, and I've definitely carried those experiences with me since then. I definitely realized then that if I can handle this, I think I'll be all right. I think I'll be okay. And that was almost 10 years ago, and I'm still ripping and running in EMS, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Since then, since I've been in EMS, I've kind of worked in every aspect of EMS. I've done transport, I've done 911, I've done in-hospital, and I've done some teaching. After I got my EMT, I graduated from college, and I initially wanted to work in federal law enforcement, but I don't know if anybody has ever applied for a job in the federal government at all, but it's a very lengthy process. And so while I was waiting, I decided to get a job working as an EMT, and I started off at LifeLink. LifeLink is the transport arm of Cape Fear Valley Medical Center and Cumberland County EMS, if anybody's familiar with that. That was a really unique experience. I started off on a BLS truck doing, dialysis transports, hospital discharges, and I got moved up to a specialty care truck. I was the driver for a specialty care truck, so being with a paramedic and seeing more critical level calls, and then I was the backup critical care truck driver, so seeing the really critical calls, that was a lot. That was a lot. It was very interesting. Got to see a lot, got to learn a lot again. And it made me realize how much as an EMT I couldn't do. And I was like, ooh, I want to do more. So that was definitely my decision to go ahead and get my paramedic. So I got my paramedic at Lenoir Community College. While I was doing my paramedic clinicals, I had initially wanted to do my paramedic clinicals with Cumberland County EMS, but Lenoir didn't have a contract at that time with Cumberland, so the next closest service was in Robeson County. And I had also heard that Robeson County had like really good traumas, and I was like, oh well, I'm gonna go work and go do my clinicals in Robeson County. And I did my clinicals in Robeson County, and I loved it, fell in love with it, and it turned into, once I got my paramedic ended up working in Robeson County. I worked in Robeson County up until last year. Yes, 2024. 23, I'm sorry, 23. I worked in Robeson County with Robeson County EMS up until 2024. I worked with Lumberton Rescue EMS. I was a part-time paramedic with them as well. During COVID, I couldn't do much else. I don't think really anybody could. So I started working as a paramedic in the ED at Cape Fear Valley. That was a thing. That was a thing. Anybody who's worked in the hospital setting as a EMS provider, it's definitely very different than working on the back of a truck. It did definitely show me, how my treatments on the truck affect the patient. Once they get to the hospital, it definitely made me think, like, as a provider, more long term. Whereas I think sometimes in EMS we can be kind of short sighted on things. But definitely another really good experience. After COVID, I started doing some part-time instructing at Robeson Community College. That was another nice experience, getting to share all the things that I've learned and seen with kind of the next generation of paramedics and EMTs. So that was really nice, really cool. And that is part of the reason why I'm here now. I want to get my instructor cert. I would like to go back to teaching, again, continue to share what I've learned and seen. And then last year I made the move from Robeson County to Wake County EMS. Again, I'm full-time paramedic with Wake County EMS, and this past May I started as a part-time paramedic with Johnston County. So I'm looking forward to seeing what I will learn with Wake County and Johnston County EMS. Overall, in kind of my professional career, I've in addition to, like I said, doing the transport, working in hospital, I've also had the opportunity to work as a FTO. I was an RSI paramedic in Robeson County. I also got to work on a QRV, being a single responder. So those are definitely some pretty unique experiences that I've had, and look forward to sharing with students in an instructor capacity. So I've given you a little bit of my professional background. I'll give you a little bit of my personal background now. I'm an only child. I'm also an Army brat. My father was in the Army for 30 years. As a result, I was actually born in Germany, and I've lived up and down the East Coast. I definitely moved around a lot as a child, but North Carolina is definitely home for me. My parents are initially from North Carolina, and North Carolina is where I've lived my adult life. I don't have any human siblings, but I do have a puppy brother, Chaos. He's a 10-year-old Shih Tzu. I also don't have any human babies, but I do have my two fur babies. I have Loki and Bindi. Loki is 4 years old and Bindi is 6 months old. They are quite the crowd. And then when you add in, my parents also have 4 other German Shepherds. There's a lot of whining. If you're familiar with German Shepherds, a lot of whining, but they're amazing. I love them. Wouldn't have it any other way. It's funny having Chaos and then having all the German Shepherds. People are always afraid of the German Shepherds, and I tell them, listen, it's not the Shepherds you have to worry about. It's the little one. He's the leader of the pack. We call him a she shepherd, but those are my babies. So a little bit more about me personally. A few things that I really love. I love motorcycles. That's actually a picture of my bike. I have a Ninja 400. It's not a really big bike, but it gets me where I need to go. I want another bike. My next bike I want is a cruiser. I'm really looking at the Honda Rebel, but we'll see what happens with that. I also love baking. My specialties are red velvet cake and honey bun cake. Traveling, I love to travel. I am a solo traveler. My family judges me a little bit because I'll get on a plane and go just about everywhere. I also love cruising. Virgin Voyages is my cruise line of choice. They are child-free, 18 and up, so that's very nice. Don't have to worry about the little gremlins running around interrupting your relaxation. But it's a lot of fun. This past year, I went to the Dominican Republic, Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and the Bahamas. So I had a lot of fun there. That's actually a picture of me riding a side-by-side through the mountains in the Dominican Republic. It's funny, every time I go to the Dominican Republic, I love it so much, and I'm like, what do I need to do to be a paramedic here? But then I come home and remember that, I have a life here, and I don't speak a whole lot of Spanish, so. kind of going along with traveling, I love parks. I love going to different cities, visiting their different parks, seeing what the parks have to offer. I'm an avid people watcher, so I love to go to the park and just watch the people walk around and see what's going on. Watching TV is another favorite pastime of mine. My two comfort shows are Law & Order SVU and JAG. A lot of people have never heard of JAG. It did kind of go off the air like 20 years ago, but it's still one of my favorites. Fun fact, if you watch NCIS or any of its iterations, NCIS is actually a spin-off of JAG. And then, of course, Law & Order SVU is, Olivia Benson is the GOAT. And speaking of goats, Beyonce, I am a, card-carrying member of the Beehive. I love Queen Bee. I recently saw her Cowboy Carter tour, and it was a great time. If you're a Beyonce fan, I definitely recommend you go see her live. It's a great experience. It's a great show. But that's just a little bit about me and things that I enjoy. I appreciate you taking the time to kind of sit here and listen to me ramble about, things I've done and things I like. And again, I look forward to working with each of you all in this class. And because if we ever run into each other in the field, I look forward to learning from you all and hopefully we have a good time in this class.